say that Fortnite Chapter 5 is extremely divisive among the player base would be a pretty big understatement. So today, I wanted to give my input on this discussion and ask the question, is Fortnite Chapter 5 truly a bad chapter? So in order to do this, we're gonna go over the good, the mid, and the bad of Chapter 5. And starting with the positives, I think that Chapter 5 overall has a really solid loot pool, and it's honestly one of my favorite loot pools that we've received. Sure, we've had some outliers like the hammer pump shotgun, the enforcer AR, and others, but overall, some of my favorite weapons have actually come from Chapter 5. The assault rifles have been very solid, giving us additions like the striker AR, a revamped combat assault rifle, and of course the striker burst AR from Season 4, which is one of my favorite weapons from the chapter. And I honestly think shotguns have been pretty solid as well, of course other than the hammer pump. And hot take, I actually really love the sovereign shotgun that was added in Season 4. And of course, I'd be crazy not to mention two of my favorite weapons of all time, with the Reaper sniper rifle and the Thunderburst SMG, as I think the Reaper sniper was one of the most satisfying snipers to use in the game. And don't even get me started on the Thunderburst SMG. I mean, you might as well not even pick up an assault rifle when you had the Thunderburst in your inventory. And even outside of the core loot pool, we also had some fun items like the grapple blade, the Greek items in Season 2, the Nitro Fist from Season 3, and of course all the crazy Marvel items from Season 4. Another aspect of Chapter 5 that has been executed well are the battle passes. These battle passes have all been banger after banger. The Tier 1 skins have all been extremely strong, and we've had some amazing Tier 100 skins as well. And one thing that I really love about all of these passes is that each pass has had a pretty clear theme, and they've stuck to the theme very well. Season 1's battle pass was pretty grounded, featuring characters from the Society and the Underground, and Peter Griffin for some reason, but you still get the point. Season 2 was all Greek god related, Season 3 had a Wasteland vibe, and of course Season 4 is themed around Marvel, so in return we have a lot of Marvel characters inside of the battle pass. And my final positive is that each season has felt pretty unique. We started out with a grounded season that was centered around the Society and the Underground, then transitioned into Season 2 with Greek gods, followed by a chaotic Season 3 with car combat, and then topping it all off with a full-blown Marvel-themed season. And of course, we always have some aspects of Battle Royale that carry over with each season, but Fortnite's certainly at its best when we have new reasons to return with each of these seasons, and I feel like Chapter 5 has executed this very well. And enough with all the positives, let's dive into the mid. But first, if you're enjoying the content, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It'll keep you up to date with all of my newest videos, and it'll also make this little frog very happy, so be sure you press it right now. So first up on the chopping block in the mid category, we have weapon attachments. Now the reason these are in the mid category is because I like the idea of attachments on paper, but I honestly think that Epic Games really dropped the ball when it comes to the execution of the attachments. And yes, while we have all the categories for customization you'd like, the issue for me is the amount of choices that we have, or the lack thereof. Epic started out with all the standard things you'd want with each category, but they never really expanded on the offerings, which has left the feature feeling pretty stale. But by far, my biggest issue with attachments is the availability of them, as I shouldn't have to find a bunker to be able to customize my weapon the way I want it, especially when attachments are one of your main selling points for new editions of Chapter 5. And while attachments were pretty mid, another aspect of Chapter 5 that I think needs improvement are medallions. They sound like a good idea on paper, but I don't think Epic Games even knew what they wanted to do with the medallion system when they introduced them in Season 1. I say this because in Season 1 where medallions were introduced, they literally all did the same thing, which was replenish your shield. Then in Season 2 and 3, they started working more like I hoped they would, giving you things like infinite sprint, negating fall damage, and more. But in Season 4, they kinda just reverted back to being bland. And in all honesty, medallions seem like a watered down version of reality augments from Chapter 4. The unpredictability of reality augments added a thrilling layer of strategy and excitement to the gameplay. And in contrast, medallions simply don't deliver the same level of engagement, as the abilities they offer feel less special, and only a limited number of players each match are able to earn them by defeating bosses, which results in an imbalance of gameplay. My final addition in the mid category revolves around the updates and events of Chapter 5. While I appreciate that Epic Games has brought back live events in some capacity, they are a step in the right direction. I'm really hoping for a full return to the traditional live events in Chapter 6, like we saw in Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and partially in Chapter 3. And now, turning our attention to seasonal events, there's not really much to be said, as I've already made a video on this topic, but to make it sweet and short, I just think the seasonal events have become rather lackluster in recent years, especially in Chapter 5. And now that we've went over the good and the mid of Chapter 5, let's dive into the truly disappointing disappointing aspects of the chapter. And where better to start than with the map? Now, in my opinion, Chapter 5's map is arguably the weakest map that we've ever received inside of the game. While I do appreciate some of the POIs on the Chapter 5 map, none of them really stand out to me as being memorable, and besides restored rills, I doubt I'll miss any of them once we move on to the next map. I've always preferred a more grounded map with bright and vibrant colors, residential areas, and an overall sense of the environment is lived in. And in my opinion, Chapters 1 and 2 excelled at creating that immersive feel for their maps, and even Chapter 4 managed to modernize the graphic while also retaining the quintessential Fortnite charm that you need for a map. Now, with all that said, the map isn't all bad, as I really enjoy the Greek biome, particularly Mount Olympus, and I've also really enjoyed how the map has evolved with each new season, making it feel alive and responsive to the storyline. I just hope that for Chapter 6, Epic Games can return to a graphic style and a map design that embodies what makes Fortnite feel unique. And my final point is perhaps my biggest frustration with Chapter 5 as a whole, and that's the relentless nerfs to items throughout the chapter. Now, before you leave a comment, I understand that balancing items is a normal part of gaming, and it's a crucial part at that. However, I can't say that I've ever witnessed a game developer as determined to nerf items into oblivion as Epic Games has been in Chapter 5. The most glaring examples of this come from Season 3 and Season 4. So let's start with Season 3. Regardless of whether you enjoyed car combat, the core focus of that season was exactly that, the car combat itself. Now, I personally love the chaotic energy that the cars brought to the island, and it felt like a fresh gameplay change for a game that's been around for 7 years. Yet, as the season progressed, Epic Games constantly made cars less enjoyable to use. And then we have Season 4. Of course, this season is Marvel themed, so we have Marvel powers in the loot pool, and amongst those, we have the Iron Man repulsors and the War Machine hoverjet. Now, I will agree that the Iron Man repulsors certainly needed to be nerfed, as the headshot damage was insane with the item, and the fact that they were auto-locked made the items even more overpowered. But the hoverjets are the main mobility item of the season, and it feels like Epic Games have nerfed these items like 705 times this season, to the point now that the item barely has enough juice to get you up a hill, and the items feel pretty useless after all the nerfs. So my main point is, while nerfs are necessary for overpowered items, there's a fine line between balancing and overtuning. So after all of that, you probably think that I hate Chapter 5, and well, I don't. I don't even think that Chapter 5 is the worst chapter, and in fact, it's not even close. But ultimately, I think Chapter 5 has a lot of wasted potential, but even with that said, I think that Chapter 5 has still been really fun to play, and I've enjoyed each season that we've had for what it was. But of course, those are just my thoughts, so be sure you let me know yours down in the comments below. But until next time, as always, take care and stay twisty.